Hello, my name is Bianca Monzon, and I am the Data Project Manager for the Child and Family Data Archive. Thank you for joining us for our webinar on how to access and use the Early Head Start Family and Child Experiences Survey Baby Faces datasets. This webinar is hosted by the Child and Family Data Archive, Mathematical Policy Research, and the Office of Planning, Research, and Evaluation, OPRE, within the Administration for Children and Families, ACF, in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. We're joined by Judy Cannon, who is a systems analyst, Yengu Cherie, senior researcher and Baby Faces principal investigator, and Sherry Vogel, senior researcher and Baby Faces project director, all from Mathematical Policy Research. Judy, Yengu, and Sherry will be leading the presentation today. But before we turn the presentation over, I'll briefly introduce you to the Child and Family Data Archive and let you know about the structure of this webinar. Next slide, please. The Child and Data Archive is supported by a contract from OPRE and housed at ICPSR within the University of Michigan. It is the place to discover, access, and analyze data on young children, their families and communities, and the programs that serve them. Users are able to access over 300 data sets with the ability to analyze selected data sets online. Users can also search and compare variables and peruse data-related publications. And of course, user support is always available to assist users in finding and obtaining data. Next slide, please. For today's webinar, Judy, Yengu, and Sherry will provide you with an overview of Baby Faces, as well as information on the Baby Faces 2018 measures, potential research questions and considerations, data files and study documentation, and sampling weights and variance estimation. Following these sections, I will share how users can request access to the Baby Faces 2018 data through the Child and Family Data Archive website. Finally, we'll close this webinar with a brief Q&A. So now I'm going to go ahead and pass the presentation over to the Mathematica team so they can share information on the Baby Faces data.
Okay, that's me then. Thank you, Bianca, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sherry Vogel, and as Bianca said, I'm a senior researcher and the project director for the Baby Faces study at Mathematica. I'm just interested in these data, and I'm really excited to be able to tell you a bit more about the study. So what I'll do is provide a relatively brief, high-level overview of the Early Head Start program and Baby Faces, and then I'm going to turn it to my colleague, Yengu Xu. She's a principal investigator, and she'll give you some more details about the study design and purpose. And then Judy Cannon, who oversaw the creation of these data files, is going to get into the details of how to use the data. All right, so Early Head Start is a two-generation program that began in 1995 as a federal initiative for low-income pregnant women and families with infants and toddlers up to age 3. And so this is younger than the ages served by Head Start. By two-generation, we mean that Early Head Start is intended to both enhance child developmental outcomes, but also provide supports for the rest of the family. So the program has grown from the initial 68 grantees to nearly 1,200 grantees, serving more than 166,000 low-income children and families nationwide. Early Head Start programs provide a wide range of services. These include child development services, child care, parenting education, case management, healthcare and referrals, and family support. And in addition to providing many services directly, programs also form partnerships with other community service providers to help families access some services. So Baby Faces, or the Early Head Start Family and Child Experiences Survey, is sponsored, as Bianca noted, by the Office of Planning, Research, and Evaluation, which is within the Administration of Children and Families and the Department of Health and Human Services. Baby Faces is a nationally representative descriptive study of Early Head Start, and it was designed to inform program planning, technical assistance, and research at the national level by providing descriptive information about Early Head Start. So this includes describing the characteristics, qualifications, and professional supports provided to staff working with early Head Start families, identifying key characteristics, strengths, and needs of families served in early Head Start, learning how early Head Start children and families are faring in key areas of child and family well-being, and exploring non-experimental associations between the type and quality of early Head Start services and child and family well-being. So the first Baby Faces study was fielded between 2009 and 2012, and it used a longitudinal design that followed two age cohorts of children, so newborns and one-year-olds, through their time in early Head Start. And a quick plug that those data are also available through ICPSR. Baby Faces 2018, the study and data we're talking about today, employs a repeated cross-sectional design. And this provides a comprehensive snapshot of early Head Start with nationally representative samples of programs, centers, classrooms, teachers, home visitors, and children and families. Baby Faces 2018 data were collected in spring 2018 in 137 programs with a special focus on classroom practices. The next round is now planned for spring 2022 in 123 programs with a larger focus on home visit processes. So this study is addressing an overarching research question that is, how do early Head Start services support infant and toddler growth and development in the context of nurturing responsive relationships? So I am now ready to hand this off to Yengu, who's going to describe the methods in more detail.
Thank you, Sherry. Now I'm going to talk about Baby Faces design and the methods. Next slide, please. The planning phase for the design of Baby Faces 2018 began with the development of a broad conceptual framework of the Early Head Start program. Mathematica's Baby Faces team and partners from OPRE and Office of Head Start in the ACF worked together with expert consultants to develop the framework that then served as the conceptual foundation for the study design. The conceptual framework shows how and why program services are expected to lead to positive outcomes for infant toddlers and their families. The framework shows the pathways from Early Head Start program inputs at all the levels on the left side to activities. Next. Yeah, next, activities. Including community engagement, program processes, and core services, to outputs, including comprehensive services from the community, program functioning, and quality services offered to and received by families. All of these contribute in some way to improve the child and the family outcomes, the goal of the program on the right side. Some of the input factors may directly influence other layers of the framework. For example, the input of child and family characteristics are also associated directly with child and family outcomes. Data on child-family outcomes that programs gather also influence the inputs and activities that program perform, as shown by the dashed arrows on the top of the figure. The planning group identified many more pathways in the conceptual framework than can be studied in Baby Faces. Next slide, please. The group then developed the logic model that served as a roadmap for the topics of interest in Baby Faces 2018. They are specific to understanding classroom and home visiting processes that support responsive relationships. The logic models elaborated portions of the conceptual framework and reflected both the research questions for Baby Faces 2018 and ACF's priorities and interests. This is the logic model for understanding classroom processes, which demonstrates that the study focused on the quality of relationships across different aspects of service provision, teacher-child relationships, parent-teacher relationships, and parent-child relationships, classroom processes that may support responsive relationships, and parent engagement practices activities. These elements are shown in boxes highlighted in red at the center of the sub-framework. At the left-hand side are program processes and functioning that support the classroom processes and practices. At the right-hand side are infant-toddler outcomes and family well-being. The arrows in the figure show the pathways that link program processes and functioning, classroom processes and practices, relationship quality, and infant outcomes and family well-being. There's a parallel logic model for understanding home visit processes. Next. Baby Faces 2018 includes nationally representative samples of ACF regions 1 to 10 early head start programs, centers, home visitors, classrooms, teachers, and families, children, and pregnant women they serve. The sample did not include any early head start programs in regions 11 and 12, AIAN programs, and a migrant seasonal head start. And we did not sample family childcare providers, FCCs, or family participating in the FCC option. The study's complex sample design incorporated multi-stage sampling, stratification, and unequal selection probabilities. The first of selection is early head start programs. Within each program, we sampled an average of 4 centers and or 6 home visitors, depending on the type of services the program provided. Within each center, we sampled up to 2 classrooms and teachers and up to 3 children within each classroom. Within programs that offered home-based services, we subsampled an average of 3 home visitors from the 6 sampled home visitors per program, and then sampled up to 3 families and the children, including pregnant women, from each of these subsampled home visitors' caseloads. And the final samples include 137 programs, more than 2,000 children in 870 classrooms in 470 centers, more than 600 home visitors, and more than 600 children and families with about 3 home visitors. Next. We collected data over 5 months in spring 2018. Program and the center directors completed the surveys either in person or via the web according to their preference. We conducted in-person interviews with the teachers and home visitors. For the sampled teachers, we also observed their classrooms. Parents completed surveys by phone. In addition, parents and the staff also completed parent-child reports and staff-child reports for each of the sampled children. Next. This table shows the data sources at different levels and the domains of measures covered. At the program center level, program center director surveys provide information on programs characteristics and program processes and functioning. For example, staffing, training, and professional development, program goals, and data use. At the teacher, classroom, or home visitor level, the staff surveys provide information about their educational backgrounds and credentials, professional development and training experiences, classrooms and home visit processes. Classroom observations assess teacher-child relationship quality and classroom features. Staff also reported on their relationships with the study child and the parent. Parent surveys provide information on demographics, household characteristics, home environment, program services received, parent engagement, and family well-being, such as parenting stress, economic pressure, and social support. Parents also reported on their relationships with the study child and with early head start staff. For infant toddler outcomes, Baby Faces 2018 used the parent and the staff reported measures of child language and communication and social emotional development. Next slide, please. Now, I will describe briefly some highlights of the measures in Baby Faces 2018. Next. Regarding teacher-child relationship quality measures, we assess the teacher-child relationship quality through classroom observations and teacher reports. For classroom observation, we use the class and QSET. Two certified observers observed the same classroom at the same time. One observer conducted an observation of the sampled classrooms using either the infant or toddler version of the class. This class observer determined whether to use the infant or toddler version of the class based on the predominant ages of children in the classroom. So the class infant, if the majority of the children in the classroom were ages 0 to 15 months, and the class toddler, if a majority of children in the classroom were ages 16 to 36 months. A second observer conducted an observation of the sampled classroom in the same time period using the QSET. And we use the STRS short form for teacher-reported teacher-child relationships. Next, please. So more about the classroom observation measures. The class infant and class toddler measure the quality of teacher-child interactions in infant and toddler classrooms, respectively. The infant version includes only one domain, responsive caregiving, the dimensions including sensitivity, language stimulation, scaffolding, and the relational climate. The toddler version includes two domains, emotional and behavioral support, dimensions including positive negative climate, teacher sensitivity, regard for children's perspective, and behavioral guidance. And engaged support for learning domain, dimensions including facilitation of learning and development, quality of feedback, and language modeling. The scores for the class range from 1 to 7 for both dimensions and domains. The QSET is designed to assess the quality of childcare settings for infant and toddlers in center-based settings and family childcare homes. It includes 3 domains: support for social emotional development, for example, responding to emotional cues; support for language literacy development, for example, extending children's language use; and support for cognitive development, for example, supporting object exploration. The scores for QSET also range from 1 to 7. Next. We also use the teacher-reported STRS to assess teachers' perceptions of their relationships with the individual children sampled in the classroom. The STRS includes 2 subscales, closeness and conflict. The closeness subscale measures the extent to which a teacher feels that his or her relationship with a child is characterized by warmth, affection, and open communication. The conflict subscale assesses the degree to which a teacher feels that his or her relationship with a particular child is characterized by negativity. Next. We measure the parent-teacher relationships using the co-caring relationship questionnaire adapted, the CRQ adapted, and the quality of parent-teacher relationship measure from the NCEDL teacher-student report. We administered the CRQ adapted to both parents and teachers and administered the NCEDL measure to teachers. The CRQ adapted measures parent-teacher relationships on the dimensions of support. For example, parent-teacher discuss the best way to meet the child's needs. Endorsement, for example, the parent-teacher have similar goals for the child. Undermining, for example, the parent believes the teacher does not trust his or her abilities. And agreement, for example, the parent and teacher have same standards for child's behavior. The NCEDL measure assesses the teacher's perception of the quality of the relationship that the teacher has with each child's parent related to satisfaction, level of trust, communication agreement, and parent support and cooperation. Next slide, please. Parents and home visitors reported on parent-home visitor relationships using an adaptation of the Working Alliance Inventory, the WAI. the parent satisfaction with home visits measure, and the CRQ adapted support subscale. We also adapted the NCEDL qualitative parent-teacher relationship measure for use with home visitors to assess the quality of parent-home visitor relationship. The WAI assess how home visitors and parents reach their level of collaboration and the extent to which they have a similar vision and goals for the home visiting services provided. It captures the nature of the relationship in 3 domains: goal setting, which measures agreement on the service goals; tasking, which measures agreement on how to achieve goals; and bonding, which measures parent and home visitor mutual appreciation and trust. The parent satisfaction with, go back please, Sherry. The parent satisfaction with home visits measure provide information about the parents' levels of satisfaction with the home visit more broadly. For example, the visits are positive experience and help the parents reach their goals, and focuses on home visits responsiveness to the family. Next. We assess the parents' perceptions of their relationships with the study child using the child-parent relationship scale short form, the CPRS, and the Healthy Families Parenting Inventory HFPI parent-child interaction subscale. The CPRS short form assesses parents' perceptions of their closeness and conflict with their child. The HFPI parent-child interaction subscale assesses aspects of parents' responsiveness and sensitivity to the child and interactions with the child. In addition to a total score for the subscale, there's a screening cutoff score that indicates an area of concern. Next, please. Babyfaces 2018 used the parent and staff reports to assess child language and communication using the CDI, and the social emotional development using the BITSI for children aged 8 months or older. The CDI are available in English and Spanish for 3 age forms: infant, toddler, and age 3 forms. We asked the parents to complete the CDI in their home language in English or Spanish. Teacher or home visitors completed the CDI in English for all study children. We derived 2 scores for children's vocabulary skills: the number of words the child understands, and the number of words the child both understands and speaks. We conducted our IRT analysis using the common items to link across the CDI forms to create a single IRT score across the multiple age forms. So in the analysis, you can look at children across all the ages. Parents and teachers also reported on use of first communicative gestures for infants, and staff rated children 31 months or older on language use and sentence complexity. The BITSI is a screener designed to detect possible delays in the acquisition of social emotional competencies, as well as social emotional and behavior problems in children. Both parents and the staff completed the BITSI for study children. There are no direct child assessments in Babyfaces 2018. Next, please. Now I'm going to talk about potential research questions that can be answered using Babyfaces 2018 data and some considerations when using the data for analysis. Next. The cross-sectional data can provide a comprehensive snapshot at one point in time and describe the characteristics of early Head Start programs, teachers, home visitors, classrooms and home visits, and the population of early Head Start children and families. The data can be used to answer questions within each of the boxes in the logic model. For example, what are the classroom features and practices that may support responsive relationships? Yeah, the green circle. Or what does teacher-child relationship quality look like in center-based early Head Start? The yellow circle. We can use the data to look at associations of constructs between boxes. For example, how the classroom features and the practice in the green circle associated with teacher-child relationship quality in the yellow circle. We can also explore mechanism pathways in the associations. For example, do teacher-child relationships in the yellow circle mediate the associations between classroom features and the practices, the green circle, and the infant toddler outcomes, the blue circle? Next slide, please. We should keep in mind the limitations of the Baby Faces 18 data when doing analysis. First, the Baby Faces 2018 is an observation study, so data cannot address causality or answer the question about the program impacts. When looking at change, for example, change in children's skills, the prior scores will be used as covariates. However, we only have the current status reported by teachers or parents. As Sherry said before, it's a cross-sectional design. Given the design, we cannot control for prior scores on the outcomes interest in any of the analysis. Moreover, we cannot make conclusions about the direction when looking at associations between variables. For example, although we can look at concurrent associations between classroom processes and the child outcomes, the findings could be misleading. That is, we might observe that children in high-quality classroom have better language and social-emotional development, but we cannot conclude that high quality leads to better outcomes. Children may enter with stronger skills, possibly because home support or exposure to high quality classroom at an early time, and children with stronger skills might elicit high quality interactions from teachers. So any inferences we might draw from this kind of analysis would have the same issue regarding the direction of associations and should be interpreted with caution. With that, I'm now turning it over to Judy for more details about the Baby Faces data.
Thanks, Yingu. Hi, everyone. I'm now going to talk more about the data files and the associated documentation. Next slide, please. The 4 Baby Faces files are organized by data level. The child file includes all child-level data, including item responses and constructs or derived variables from the parent interview, the parent-child report, and the staff-child report. The home visitor file contains all item responses and constructs from the home visitor survey. The class teacher file contains all responses and constructs from the class, the QSIT, and the teacher survey. And finally, the director file has the data from the program director and the center director surveys. It is important to note that the director file is at the center director level, so programs with multiple centers will have program director data repeated for each of their centers. The structure of each of the files is similar, starting with unique identifiers for each file, followed by data flags indicating whether there is a completed instrument for each case. For example, the data flag might show whether or not a child has a completed parent survey, followed by the sampling weights, constructed and derived variables, and item response data from each of the surveys and assessments. The one small exception in structure is the child file, which has demographic variables pulled up to the front of the file after the data flags. More detailed information about the data files, their content, and their structure can be found in Chapter 5 of the User's Guide. It is important to note that the individual item responses from any copyrighted assessments or observations are not included in the data files. Next slide, please. Chapter 5 of the User's Guide also reviews several data file conventions, including variable naming. For baby faces, the prefix indicates the source instrument for the variable. For example, all variables that begin with PI are from the parent interview survey, whereas variables that begin with PR are from the parent-child report. The 1 is meant to indicate that this is from the Baby Faces 2018 data collection and will be used to differentiate from variables in the next round of Baby Faces. You can then quickly identify the source of a variable in both the variable name and the variable label. The rest of the variable name is based on the questionnaire or interview item number or a short description of the construct in the case of constructs. For example, the the variable PI1M_EMPLY is mother employed from the parent interview survey. So this makes it easier to go back to the questionnaire to understand how the question was asked and what the data represent. In general, all constructs derived from a given source maintain the same prefix as the source. Some construct variables, however, combine information across several sources and are not associated with any prefixes, such as the variable child months, which is the child's age in months at their site visit. A few other exceptions that do not follow these conventions include identifiers, such as child ID, or cross-sectional weights, such as the weight PI_class_weight. Next slide, please. To merge data across files, you will need to use identifiers provided on the data files. The child-level data file contains an identification number for each child and an identification number for the Early Head Start programs, an ID for their centers, and for their teacher or home visitor. The same program and center IDs are found on the director-level file. The staff IDs of either the teacher or home visitor are found on the teacher or home visitor level file. The class IDs in the class teacher file. Similarly, all IDs with the same name on each file are the same ID and can be used for linking between the files. A reminder that the director file is at the center level. Therefore, if you would like to conduct analysis at the program director level, you would first need to deduplicate the file using the program director ID, which is D1_ID. Next slide, please. Thank you. Babyfaces uses a set of standard codes across all instruments to identify missing data. These codes identify the different types of missing data, those resulting from legitimate skips, item non-response, and instrument non-response. Item non-response occurs when there are missing data on individual items within a given instrument. We have not imputed for item level missing data in the data we have provided. Version missing occurs when an item was not included in the version of the instrument administered to a particular case. For example, some questions were asked of teachers in the staff child's report that were not asked of home visitors and vice versa. Since these data are together in the child file, questions that were not asked of a teacher or home visitor are marked with a .v. Instrument non-response occurs when an entire instrument is missing for a case. Instrument non-response in Babyface's data is addressed through the application of sampling weights. Users should determine how to handle data involving legitimate skips. They should also be certain to revisit the instruments to identify legitimate skips. The approach will depend on the question and the estimate. For example, if you're interested in estimating the % of all children in center-based care, users should recode missing data to no center-based care. In contrast, if interested in the % of children in care who are cared for in a center setting, users will leave the missing data as missing. Next slide, please. The Babyfaces User's Guide is a key resource for information about the study design, data collection procedures, response rates, data review and editing preparation for the file, data file structure and use, and details on the constructs created from the data. The User's Guide also includes 16 appendices that provide detail on the data included in the 4 Babyfaces files. Appendices A through J include the Babyfaces surveys or instruments, annotated with the source variable names for any non-copyrighted materials. Copyrighted instruments or scales are not included in the data file. The User's Guide details the original measures in text and provides the copyright statements required by publishers. Appendix K includes reliability estimates for all measures. Appendices L through O include a codebook for each of the 4 Babyfaces files. Each codebook lists the variables included in the data file, their labels, simple statistics, and a description of the specifications used to create constructs or derived variables. Finally, Appendix P lists all of the variables that have been removed or masked from any of the files containing source data due to rare events. Next slide, please. On this slide, we have an example of the codebook that is provided for each file. The codebooks are organized to reflect the file structure as outlined earlier. Next slide, please. Here is an example of the table in Appendix P that details all of the source variables that have been dropped or collapsed due to rare events. We created this table so that you are able to reconcile the differences between the instruments that are annotated with variable names and the variables found in the data files. Dropped refers to variables that have been removed from the data file due to a rare event, and collapsed refers to variables that have been grouped into larger categories, capped, or combined with one or more variables, forming an other variable. The collapsed variable name column shows the name of the variable after being collapsed. This will be the same name as the original variable unless the original variable was combined with one or more other variables to create one new other variable. Okay, next slide. Next, I'm going to talk about sampling weights and variance estimation. Baby faces is a complex study, and the data sets reflect this complexity. You will need to make a number of decisions when using the data. In the time we have today, we would like to share with you some information that will hopefully make your decision-making and the task of working with the data a bit easier. There are several features of baby faces in all large-scale studies that are important to keep in mind when you are thinking about the need to use weighted data in your analysis. Some examples are listed here. For example, baby faces is designed to produce national estimates. Baby faces is a sample. In other words, there was no survey of the entire population. Baby faces is not a simple random sample. Not all programs, teachers, home visitors, parents, and children had an equal probability of selection. And not all programs, parents, teachers, and home visitors participated. Next slide, please. Since Baby Faces is designed to produce national estimates, it is important to use weights in order to adjust for probabilities of selection, adjust for non-response, identify eligible cases, and to reduce potential bias. Next slide. Baby Faces weights vary according to level of analysis and source of data. Chapter 2 of the Baby Faces User's Guide describes the process used to create the weights and provides a table, which is table 2.2 in chapter 2, designed to help you choose the correct weight. There are 20 weights on the Baby Faces data files. When choosing a weight, you should consider your level of analysis and the sources of data. Next slide. Here we're going to go through a weighting example. This list of weights is a small sample from the User's Guide, table 2.2. The name of the weights are as descriptive as possible to identify how they apply. For example, if you would like to find out the percentage of mothers that are employed for children in the Baby Faces 2018 study, you would take the mean of PI1M_EMPLY, which as a reminder is the variable that came from the parent interview survey. And then you would use the weight PI_weight, which as you can see in this table is for the parent survey. If you'd like to find the mean of the QSIT support for cognitive development scale score, which comes from the classroom observations, then you would use the classroom observation weight, which is class_obs_WT. If you'd like to look at staff depression using the staff CESDR total score, you could use the staff survey, use the variable SI-CESDRT, and then here you would use the teacher weight for the teacher survey, which is the teacher level teacher survey weight, and the HV staff weight for the home visitor survey. And if you wanted to look at depression across both surveys together, you could stack the data on top of each other and create a stacked weight for teacher weight for observations that come from the teacher survey and HV staff weight for observations that come from the home visitor survey, and use this combined weight to weight across surveys. Once again, this information is detailed in chapter 2 of the User's Guide. Next slide. You can use the Baby Faces data to test the differences between 2 or more groups of children or staff, or the relationships between the characteristics or environments of children and staff. You can conduct tests to ascertain whether these differences or relationships are significant, and you can estimate the variance and standard errors of these estimates. Next slide, please. In Baby Faces, observations are not independent, which is an assumption of a simple random sample. Children in the sample program are more likely to share characteristics. Therefore, it is important to make sure that you take this into account when selecting procedures to use in your analysis. When estimates of the standard errors are smaller, chances of finding statistically significant results increases. In other words, the T or F value will increase. And this is something we want to avoid. Next slide, please. were they already? Okay. Taylor series and replication weights methods are ways of estimating the correct variance for complex survey design. In baby faces, we use the Taylor series method. When there are clusters in the sample design, the Taylor series method estimates variance from the variation among clusters. When the design is stratified, the procedure pools stratum variance estimates to compute the overall variance estimate. You have many options for estimating variance and standard errors using the Taylor series method. Some of them are listed here. We have included the variables that are required by this method, which are strat and D1_ID, and these are used in conjunction with the appropriate sampling weight. For baby faces analysis, we use the SAS survey procedures, including proc survey means and proc survey freak, among several others. And now Bianca will share how users can access the Baby Faces 2018 study through the Child and Family Data Archive. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Okay, next slide. To access the Baby Faces 2018 data, please visit the Child and Family Data Archive website at childandfamilydataarchive.org. To find this study, enter the study title or acronym in the search box highlighted here. If you can just hit next for me, please. Then click on the study title as it displays in the search results. This link will direct you to the study's homepage. Okay. Here's a screenshot of the Baby Faces 2018 study's homepage. This homepage is where you'll find important information such as a summary about the study and information on the study's methodology, sampling, weights, and more. The study homepage is also where users can search and compare variables and view publications based on the use of the Baby Faces data. While users may preview and download the public documentation located on the Data and Documentation tab, which is currently circled, a restricted data application is required for users to gain access to the restricted data and all of the study documentation. To begin your application, click on the Access Restricted Data button that's now highlighted, and then follow the instructions and complete the sections that are shown next. Next slide, please. The application requires several pieces of information, including a description of the intended research project, a data security plan, an IRB letter, and a signed data use agreement. Archive staff are available to assist you with your application and to answer any questions. Just email us at cfdata-help@umich.edu with the application request number. Next slide. Okay, so now we are going to take some of your questions. Feel free to use a chat box feature or raise your hand if you have a question and we can unmute your mic. All right, I'm just gonna see what questions we're getting in. So this is a question for the Mathematica team. And the question is, do you have information related to disability categories and status? For example, disability category, special education, or early intervention participation, etc.
We do not. This is Sherry.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's see. Okay, can I link the Baby Faces 2009 to 2012 data to the Baby Faces 2018 data for analysis?
I can take that one.
Okay.
Yep, this is a good question. The two data sets represent two different samples of early Head Start programs, so we cannot link the two. Each effort was focused on different priorities for research topics. So these data differ, but there are some common data elements. We could use these common data elements to examine aggregate change over time. For example, we could look at how the demographics of early Head Start staff or families have changed over the last decade, but we could not look at change over time for individual programs or individual children and families.
Okay, Thank you, Yingu, for answering that question. We also have a comment here that that there aren't any publicly available data, that they're not seeing any publicly available data on the study homepage, and that is correct. These data are restricted. Users, again, have to go through an application process to gain access to these data. But if you're unsure about whether or not the Baby Faces data will help you answer your research questions, you don't necessarily have to go through the entire application process to help you determine if these are the data that you want to use. Again, I recommend that users visit the study homepage. There's a wealth of information, again, on the study methodology in the at a glance section of the study homepage. You can also find the available code books and user guides, which are made public and have more information on the variables included in these data on the documentation tab. And then again, there's a variables tab, which you can go to search measures of interest to see if they're contained in these data. So those are great ways to determine whether or not you want to continue to submit an application for these data. And thank you for raising that question. Okay. Oh, we're getting in quite a few questions, so let me. Okay. Is attendance in the program captured? This again is for Mathematica.
I think Yingu or Judy, you can correct me, but not really. We have in the home visitor child report, we have a question about how often in the last month, I think, that they'd communicated with the family. There's some questions here and there, but it's not in the 2009 data. If you're interested, we have extensive information about how the attendance and number of center days and number of home visits, but we did not go to those lengths in this round.
Yeah, that's right. We didn't capture individual level attendance, but in the center director survey, we have a general question asking about the extent of the percentage of families with attendance problems. But that's only a general question.
Thank you both for clarifying that. Let's see, we have another question. Do you have information for teachers or home visitors' mental health, or do you have information on teachers or home visitors' mental health or well-being variables such as stress scores?
Yes, we have teacher home visitor report using the CSD, and we also have their report on stress, but it's more it's not more geared toward the center climate, the stress in the environment, not specifically on the individual stuff.
But the depression scores are for the individuals, so yeah, we do have that.
Depression is. Mm-hmm.
My institution is currently closed due to COVID, and I am currently working from home. Am I still able to request and gain access to these data? And absolutely. We understand that users are working under unique challenges right now, and we are working with our users to make sure that we can provide continued access to these data while ensuring that the data are kept secure. You may want to visit the news section on the CF Data website for more information. I believe the very first link on the news page on our website provides additional guidance on this. And of course, you can always reach out to the CF Data help email account for additional assistance and guidance. Okay, and this is a question for Mathematica. Can I analyze the data without using weights?
Judy, do you want to take this one or?
Sure. Yeah. If you want to be able to arrive at nationally representative estimates, you have to use the weights to account for the instrument non-response. And then as a reminder, if you want to correctly estimate the variance and standard errors for statistical inference, you'll need to make sure that you're also accounting for the complex survey design using the strata and the PSU through the Taylor series method or possibly through a replication weights method. And the Taylor series method is what we used in our analyses.
I think the short answer is you could, but it wouldn't be optimal. You can do it, but it's going to your results will be biased.
Mm-hmm.
Right, thank you. Thank you for that answer. Let's see, we actually have a follow-up question to a question that was raised earlier, and that is there any chance that disability information will be gathered in the Babyfaces 2020 data?
Yeah, well, it's 2022 now, and we won't get into all the whys, but you can imagine how we got delayed. Not really. We aren't not planning to ask a lot about that. And I think that one thing to be, I don't know if this makes a difference to you, but within any classroom or any home visitor caseload, we're only sampling 3 children. So we're hoping to get, all 3, but at least 2 of them. So it's not very many children in these particular units. It's just when you aggregate up that it becomes nationally representative. So, but that's pretty sensitive information to ask, so we have not asked it.
Thank you, Sherry. How can I check that the merged files at different levels were properly merged?
That's probably one for me. There are a couple things you can do. One, when you merge the files together, you can use the data flags that we have. There's a data flag for each instrument, and it's set equal to 1 if we have data for that instrument for that child, or teacher, home visitor, center, program director. And it's set equal to 0 if we do not have that data. And so when you do a merge, you could check your merge with this flag to make sure that you're gathering all of the correct observations after you merge 2 or more files together. And another thing you could do is compare your sample sizes to what we have in the provided public data tables. And this would be a good check to make sure that the sample sizes you're looking for are correct based on the weights that you're using or files that you're using.
And then we have a question about whether wage and benefit data for center and home visitor staff is available.
Ningu, jump in if you remember this, but I do not think so. We might have a question at the program director level asking about relative to the community, are the wages in line with the prevailing wage in the community, but I'm not sure. That I might be wrong about that.
Okay. Let me just see. How long does it take for an application to be approved? So that's a question for me. And our goal is to respond to users within 2 days of their request. However long it takes to process an application depends on a number of factors, such as were all the application materials received and complete? Do the responses provided in the data security section of the application meet our security requirements? This rarely happens, but is your institution requesting modifications to the data use agreement, as well as the volume of requests that are currently being processed? If you have any questions about the status of your application or again need guidance on your application, I strongly encourage you to just contact us at that email address, and we'll share it again in just a moment so we can work with you to get your application approved. So I think we can go ahead and close out the question section of this presentation. And if you just want to go to the next slide. So provided is contact information for more information. And I believe you'll want to reach out to Sherry. And of course, ICPSR's information, the Child and Family Data Archives information is on the next slide. If you want to go to the next slide, please. If you have any questions that weren't answered today, or if you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us at this email address. And again, you can also reach out to the folks at Mathematica so we can help resolve your questions. Remember to visit the Child and Family Data Archive website to request access to these data. You can also sign up for our listserv to receive notifications on data release announcements, data webinars, and workshops through the site. Lastly, please contact us at cfdata-help@umich.edu for questions or assistance. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us, and thank you, Judy, Yangu, and Sherry, for all of this great information. And with that,
Thank you.
yep, thank you.